Ambassador Haley's resignation announcement comes less than 24 hours after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo returned from a four-country Asia trip. His trip included a stop in North Korea, where he had lunch with Kim Jong Un and discussed a potential second summit between the North Korean leader and President Trump. North Korea also agreed to allow international inspectors into a missile testing facility that it claimed was destroyed, but said the U.S. must take, quote, corresponding measures in order for inspections to proceed. CBS News State Department reporter Kylie Atwood joins me now from Washington. She was with the Secretary of State on his trip. Kylie, thanks for joining us. Before we get to Secretary Pompeo's trip, I do want to ask you about Ambassador Haley's resignation. We are told that both Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and National Security Advisor John Bolton were surprised. What does that tell us?
Well, I think it reminds us that as much as Nikki Haley has been an advocate of the Trump administration, has followed through on a lot of their foreign policy objectives up at the UN in terms of sanctions on North Korea, being tough on Iran, and being tough on Russia, despite the fact that this is a president who hasn't been that tough on Russia in his own rhetoric. She has also maintained her own identity that is different from this administration. Right? She has a group of advisors. Many of them came with her from her days in South Carolina, where she was governor. And so the fact that Pompeo and Bolton didn't know about her resignation means that she was talking with her close advisors, but not necessarily talking with the whole Trump cabinet about her plans for her future. She worked with them where she needed to, but she has also stayed apart from them where she needs to. And she did that in orchestrating this departure. It was well orchestrated, and it demonstrates just how politically adept she is at looking at her own future and trying to separate herself from the Trump administration where she sees she needs to and when she sees she needs to.
Well, let's turn to North Korea. Did Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accomplish anything that could be considered significant during this latest trip?
So the State Department and Pompeo claim that, yes, he did. First of all, they are able to kind of refine the options for where they're going to have the next Trump-Kim summit in terms of date and location, but we still don't know the date or the location. He also said that the U.S. New North Korea Special Representative, Steve Biegun, who traveled to North Korea with Pompeo, is going to be having lower-level discussions to try and develop even more of an impetus to get something done on denuclearization, because if there's more conversations happening, this administration thinks that they can get some more tangible action from the North Koreans. And then they also, as you pointed out at the top of this segment, were able to get North Koreans to agree to allowing international inspectors into one of their nuclear test sites. But I want to point out that that's a test site that has already been destroyed, and the North Koreans allowed journalists to come see it. They didn't allow inspectors in. But still, we don't know the date for when those inspectors are going to be going in. We also don't know what kind of equipment they're going to be able to bring. Are they going to have everything they need to verify that, yes, this test site is actually no longer working, and it is a place that the North Koreans can't turn to test what they have already developed nuclear program.
So just so I'm clear then, Kylie, Secretary Pompeo did talk about this but didn't provide much detail, it sounds like, about the prospect of having inspectors visit the North nuclear site.
That's exactly right. And that's a nuclear test site. One thing that wasn't even addressed at all in these conversations, as far as we know, and I pressed the secretary on this, was the largest nuclear scientific research and production site for North Korea's nuclear program. The U.S. wasn't able to get the North Koreans to allow any inspectors on location there, and that's something that President Moon and Kim Jong Un had agreed to if the U.S. took corresponding measures. Clearly, the U.S. hasn't taken the corresponding measures that the North Koreans want, and so that means that the heart and soul of the North Korea's nuclear program remains intact. They are still able to keep building up what they have and developing scientifically their capabilities.
So, Kylie, tell us what the experience was like on the ground as a journalist. Did you actually get to talk to some North Koreans?
I did, and that was actually one of the most intriguing parts to me. Obviously, being just feet away from Kim Jong Un was incredible. I think most journalists would die to be able to do that, and it was fascinating to watch. Right when Pompeo landed, the North Koreans were really controlling the narrative here, and obviously we're on North Korean soil. That's to be expected, but to a degree, right when Pompeo landed, North Korean officials were telling him that he couldn't bring a translator into his meeting with Kim Jong Un, and also that he couldn't bring one of his security officials with a weapon. They specifically told him not to bring someone with a weapon into the meeting. Now, Pompeo kind of laughed at that and said a big guy, you know, referencing his Secret Service agent who did go with him to the meeting, but the translator didn't go with him to the meeting. And, you know, sitting for me and talking with North Korean officials over lunch was fascinating because they asked questions about the midterms. Is Trump's party going to win in the midterms, and what I thought was going to happen? So this set of people in North Korea, you know, foreign ministry officials, those who are affiliated with Kim Jong Un, they really know a lot about what's going in the United States, and they're interested about it.
Wow, that is really fascinating to hear just how closely they are watching what is happening here on our political landscape. Kylie Atwood in Washington for us. Kylie, thanks so much.